2. The plane flew over him just after he passed Jim Rennie's used cars, a place for which Barbie had no love. Not that he'd bought a lemon there. He hadn't owned a car in over a year, had sold the last one in Punta Gorda, Florida. It was just that Jim Rennie Jr. had been one of the fellows that night in Dipper's parking lot. A frat boy with something to prove, and what he could not prove alone he would prove as part of a group. That was the way the Jim Juniors of the world did business, in Barbie's experience. But it was behind him now. Jim Rennie's, Jim Jr., Sweetbriar Rose, fried clams our specialty, always whole, never strips. Angie McCain, Andy Sanders, the whole deal, including dippers. Beatings administered in the parking lot, our specialty, all behind him. And ahead of him, why, the gates of America. Goodbye, small-town Maine, hello, big sky. Or maybe, hell, he'd head down south again. No matter how beautiful this particular day, winter was lurking a page or two over on the calendar. The South might be good. He'd never been to Muscle Shoals, and he liked the sound of the name. That was goddamn poetry, Muscle Shoals was, and the idea so cheered him that when he heard the little plane approaching, he looked up and gave a big old exuberant wave. He hoped for a wing waggle in return, but didn't get one, although the plane was slow-poking at low altitude. Barbie's guess was sightseers. This was a day for them, with the trees in full flame. Or maybe some young kid on his learner's permit, too worried about screwing up to bother with groundlings like Dale Barbara. But he wished them well. Sightseers or a kid still 6 weeks from his first solo cruise, Barbie wished them very well. It was a good day, and every step away from Chester's Mill made it better. Too many assholes in the mill, and besides, travel was good for the soul. Maybe moving on in October should be a law, he thought. New national motto, everybody leaves in October. You get your packing permit in August, give your required week's notice in mid-September, then... He stopped. Not too far ahead of him on the other side of the blacktop highway was a woodchuck. A damned fat one. Sleek and sassy, too. Instead of scurrying off into the high grass, it was coming on ahead. There was a fallen birch sticking its top half out onto the shoulder of the road, and Barbie was betting the woodchuck would scurry under there and wait for the big bad two legs to go by. If not, they would pass each other like the rambling guys they were. The one on 4 legs headed north, the one on 2 headed south. Barbie hoped that would happen. It would be cool. These thoughts went through Barbie's mind in seconds. The shadow of the airplane was still between him and the chuck, a black cross racing along the highway. Then 2 things happened, almost simultaneously. The first was the woodchuck. It was whole, then it was in 2 pieces. Both were twitching and bleeding. Barbie stopped, mouth hanging open on the suddenly lax hinge of his lower jaw. It was as if an invisible guillotine blade had dropped. And that was when, directly above the severed woodchuck, the little airplane exploded. 3. Barbie looked up. Falling from the sky was a squashed, bizarro world version of the pretty little airplane that had passed over him seconds before. Twisting orange-red petals of fire hung above it in the air. A flower that was still opening, an American disaster rose. Smoke billowed from the plummeting plane. Something clanged to the road and sprayed up clods of asphalt before spinning drunkenly into the high grass to the left. A propeller. If that had bounced my way. Barbie had a brief image of being cut in 2, like the unfortunate woodchuck, and turned to run. Something thudded down in front of him, and he screamed. But it wasn't the other propeller. It was a man's leg dressed in denim. He could see no blood, but the side seam had been blown wide open, revealing white flesh and wiry black hair. There was no foot attached. Barbie ran in what felt like slow motion. He saw one of his own feet, clad in an old scuffed work boot, stride out and clop down. Then it disappeared behind him as his other foot strode out. All slow, like watching the baseball replay of a guy trying to steal second. There was a tremendous hollow clang from behind him, followed by the boom of a secondary explosion, followed by a blast of heat that struck him from heels to nape. It shoved him on his way like a warm hand. Then all thoughts blew away, and there was nothing but the body's brute need to survive. Dale Barbara ran for his life. 4. 100 yards or so down the road, the big warm hand became a ghost hand. Although the smell of burning gas, plus a sweeter stench that had to be a mixture of melting plastic and roasting flesh, was strong, carried to him on a light breeze. Barbie ran another 60 yards, then stopped and turned around. He was panting. He didn't think it was the running. He didn't smoke, and he was in good shape. Well, fair. His ribs on the right side still hurt from the beating in Dipper's parking lot. He thought it was terror and dismay. He could have been killed by falling pieces of airplane, not just the runaway propeller, or burned to death. It was only blind luck that he hadn't been. Then he saw something that made his rapid breathing stop in mid-gasp. He straightened up, looking back at the site of the accident. The road was littered with debris. It really was a wonder that he hadn't been struck and at least wounded. A twisted wing lay on the right. The other wing was poking out of the uncut timothy grass on the left, not far from where the runaway propeller had come to rest. In addition to the blue jeans-clad leg, he could see a severed hand and arm. The hand seemed to be pointing at a head, as if to say, "That's mine." A woman's head, judging from the hair. The power lines running beside the highway had been severed. They lay crackling and twisting on the shoulder. Beyond the head and arm was the twisted tube of the airplane's fuselage. Barbie could read NJ3. If there was more, it was torn away. But none of this was what had caught his eye and stopped his breath. The disaster rose was gone now, but there was still fire in the sky. Burning fuel, certainly, but it was running down the air in a thin sheet. Beyond it, and through it, Barbie could see the main countryside, still peaceful, not yet reacting, but in motion nevertheless. Shimmering like the air over an incinerator or a burning barrel. It was as if someone had splashed gasoline over a pane of glass and then set it alight. Almost hypnotized, that was what it felt like anyway. Barbie started walking back toward the scene of the crash.